A note: some procedures and assignment submission requirements are not listed in the lab manual. Please follow the instructions in this video for those changes. Part A, Equipment Setup. Place 2 clean 50 ml burettes onto a burette clamp attached to a support stand. Part B, Data Collection Setup. On the LabQuest 2 device, open the LabQuest app, then attach the pH sensor. Click Sensors and Sensor Setup to ensure that the corresponding channel is connected to a pH meter. Then change the mode to Events with Entry. Your device is now ready for pH data collection. Part C, Titration Curve with a strong acid and strong base. Using a clean burette, measure out 20.00 milliliters of 0.1 molar HCl into a 150 milliliter beaker. Remove the pH probe from its storage container, wash with deionized water into a waste container, then place the clean probe into your reaction beaker. Add 50 milliliters of deionized water to your reaction beaker. This changes the overall volume of the acid but does not change the number of moles of the acid present. Add several drops of phenolphthalein so you may qualitatively determine the equivalence point during the titration. Press the play button to begin data collection. Each time a data point is to be collected, press the Keep button, then enter the volume of the base added during the titration. At this point, 0.00 milliliters is entered as no base has been added to the reaction. Using a clean burette, add a small amount of your strong base to the beaker with your strong acid. Mix the solution with your pH probe. Record this new pH value by pressing the Keep button and entering the volume measured on the burette of the strong base added to the beaker. Continue this process until you have titrated through the equivalence point and a plateau has been achieved. Once your last data point has been collected, press the Stop button, and then you're ready to export your data for further analysis. Insert a USB thumb drive into the USB port, then save the file onto your USB drive. Part D through G. All other titration curves are performed with the same procedures as shown in the strong acid, strong base titration. The videos for these titrations will not be shown. However, sample data for each titration curve is provided on Blackboard. Processing the titration curve data. Open the corresponding strong acid, strong base data file. Then highlight the Run 1 data for volume and pH and copy and paste into an Excel document. Create an XY scatter plot with volume as the x-axis and pH as the y-axis. Be sure to include chart titles and axis titles. Using this data, you will determine the volume, the pH value, and the concentration of proton ions at various points during the titration. Create a table that allows you to enter and calculate this data. To calculate the midpoints and equivalence points in our data, add linear lines on each plateau and sharp rise within the graph. Add a marker that shows the middle of each line within the data. Using vertical and horizontal lines, bisect each one of these points and extrapolate back to the x and y axes. Using these x and y extrapolations, determine the volume of base and pH at each midpoint and equivalence point. Once the pH has been determined for all 4 points on the titration curve, this value can be used to calculate the proton concentration. This is done by using the equation 10 to the power of the negative pH. This data can now be recorded in your post-lab questions. Data for each titration curve has been added into an Excel file linked in Blackboard. Use this data to create a curve for each titration. Next, finish processing the data collected and complete all calculations. Answer all post-lab questions and then submit the following in order on Blackboard. Post-lab questions and the processed graphs with any annotations for all titration curves should be included.